Views expressed on the following program do not necessarily reflect those of WPSL. However, we do encourage you to like and share them on social media and with all your friends and neighbors, because it's the show about the events that are going on here on the Treasure Coast. It's the Sue-EllenSanders Show with your host, the one and only Sue-EllenSanders.
Welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here, and today I have one return guest and one brand new guest. Both ladies in the studio with me today are with Tykes and Teens, and we're going to find out more details about that. Courtney Ninetemp is the development officer for Tykes and Teens, and Anushka Marshall, Dr. Anushka Marshall is the Chief Clinical Officer. So we're going to get not just information today about the services of Tykes and Teens, but we'll get some helpful information too about if you're a grandma or a mom or a business owner who has people that are employees that have to deal with family issues. You'll learn how to move on and how to deal with issues that are things that might interrupt your daily life. And of course, there's always COVID on the table. We're always dealing with the follow-up and continued implications of what COVID has, the havoc that it's created in our community, and especially with the kids. So Courtney, you were on at the last show. I think we had you on because we were talking about funds that you received for the new office in St. Lucie County. And so Tykes and Teens really covers Martin and St. Lucie County now, correct?
We actually cover Martin, St. Lucie, Indian River, and Okeechobee.
Wow.
Yes.
So that's a lot. And even though the main office is in Palm City, you offer services to families in all four of those counties. So let's just kick it off by talking about the mission and the direction of Tykes and Teens, a little bit about the history.
Sure. So Tykes and Teens provides mental health counseling to children, as you may have picked up on already. Our mission, and I'm going to read it directly from the back of our card so I don't get it wrong.
So pretty. If you're looking at this online, the cards are so pretty. I love front and back cards.
So we prioritize children's mental health in our families, schools, and communities through prevention, education, and treatment programs. So essentially what that means is not only do we have outpatient facilities like the one off of St. Lucie West Boulevard that we talked about last time that I was on, from Impact 100 St. Lucie, but we're also in the schools in Martin County and Indian River. We're in families' homes through our infant mental health program, in daycare centers through trauma-informed care and mental health consultation. So we have over 50 designated service locations, and then we're in about 200 homes providing these services to our kiddos.
I know as a mom that there are hot spots in children's growth and age that are worse for some kids or more challenging for some kids. I have a friend whose children were the same age as mine. Mine are young adult children now, and at every stage of the game, no matter how challenging it was, she always said, "This is my favorite stage. This is it. This is the most exciting time of my children's life." Whether they were at terrible twos or whether they were the first B or C they came home with, or whether they were in middle school, whether they were getting ready to enter high school, whatever it was, whatever challenges, that was the best time. And I loved her attitude because I feel like the children in her home, her girls, walked away with that confidence of knowing that whatever was going on in their life, this was the best time of their mom's life with them. I wasn't that woman. I aspired to be, and every time I was around her, I would think about what she was saying, but there are so many challenges in a pre-COVID world. There's so many challenges that families have to deal with. Other aspects. Dr. Marshall, you want to give us a little bit more detail about some of the times in a family's life, in a young family's life, that are the most challenging?
Sure. Well, I'm going to start off being a little bit technical and then get a little bit more real.
Okay.
So there's a famous psychologist out there. His name is Erickson, and he has these various developmental stages. And in each developmental stage, there's a task to overcome. So like in infancy, for example, there's trust versus mistrust, where you're trying to identify whether your world is safe. So this is where, the infant cries and the parent's going to come over and soothe it. So the child understands that, my needs are going to be met and I'm safe. And if I am in distress, someone's going to come and take care of me. So, and the audience could probably look it up and see all those. But now to get real, and those stages are throughout a person's entire life, by the way, all the way up to, elderly age and so on.
It doesn't stop at 18.
It doesn't stop at 18. No, it keeps going. But in the getting real aspect, in working with families for as long as I have, since 2006 actually, I would say definitely that sixth grade, that middle school era is extremely rough for kids, just because they're no longer playing with Barbies, but they may not necessarily have, are up with the latest fashion. So it's this awkward time where you're first of all, you look the weirdest probably than you probably ever look, right? Because you're going through an odd growth. Maybe your ears are bigger than your head at that point.
And the girls are all taller than the boys.
Yeah. So it's just like it's a hot mess waiting to happen. So I think that is very difficult. And then there's a specific period during adolescence. Age 14 actually is when it starts, from 14 to 16. And you would think, well, aren't all teenage years bad? Well, I mean, they can be, or difficult, challenging. They can be. But really, psychologically, that 14 to 16 can be really difficult because there are certain things happening cognitively that are just... that make things difficult. So one thing that is happening is this where the children believe that, and again, this is normal. This is not like we're talking diagnosable issue. But if you walk through a mall, for example, right, as an adult, you may not be thinking, oh, everyone's looking at me. Right. Well, there's this cognitive thing happening at that age where they actually truly do get the sense that they are on a pedestal and people are looking at them. So it makes them very insecure and constantly, adjusting what they're doing. So it's almost like feeling like you are always on stage and people are looking, judging, or taking you in. And then the other interesting thing that is happening is that the perception of things around you are more dramatic. So, and I know parents of teenagers out there will get this, where their teenager tells them, "Why are you yelling at me?" Right? When the parent's like, not.
My 27-year-old still says that to me on the phone.
So that might be another conversation off air. But and I'm sure every parent has experienced that, whereas literally I'm not yelling at you, but their brain is experiencing this perception that it's a little bit more grander than what the reality is. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where parents a lot of times get into those conflicts with their teenagers, because they're like, what do you mean? And everything just seems just like it's turned up drama-wise in their brain. And again, this is not a diagnostic issue, or that it's abnormal. It actually is a normal process that is happening in their brains. So I would say those two periods.
Well, the other thing that makes it more challenging when your child, no matter the age, is raising their voice, is you are raising your voice in return, and you're mirroring what's going on. Yeah. There's so many that's the thing. There's so many books out there. There's websites. There's all sorts of blogs and information on how to parent and how to raise successful, happy, wonderful children. Mm-hmm. And they all have different answers.
Sometimes, yeah.
And then those of us with more than one child Well, I really, really thought this, that by the time my second child came along a year later, I was going to be really good because I knew how to do everything.
Yeah.
But everything changed.
Mm-hmm.
And how, and this is something that would be interesting to talk about too, is how children growing up in the same home can grow up so differently when they had the same experience with their parent, or they both grew up in a single parent home, or they both grew up and maybe had to struggle to make ends meet. And or if there are 4 children in the home, maybe there's 4 different ways they grew up. So it's like there's no hard and fast answers or rules. So anyhow, that's why Tykes and Teens is there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think one thing that comes to my mind now, I'm not a clinician working with the kids, and I'm not a parent. So I'm coming in as a very different perspective on the whole situation. But one thing that stands out to me every time I have this conversation with others is that it's not just the kid that's struggling, it's the parents that are trying to figure it out, whether it's their first or their 4th kid. And by the time they come to us, they're often past the point of an easy answer because they don't immediately think to come to us, because oftentimes they feel like they've failed. So when they call us, which isn't true at all. It's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to be coming to us. But that's what makes our program unique from others, is that we involve the parents in the conversation. We bring them in when it's appropriate to have them as part of the conversation, and go into the homes to address the situation as a whole. Because if you're pulling the kid out and helping them and plopping them back into the same situation where everybody else hasn't been helped, then you're not helping the whole problem.
Yeah,
It's like you're watering. You need to water the soil and not just the plant.
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah. No, we need the parents in the treatment. They are what help us be successful with that child. I mean, we, it's a part of our, not necessarily policy, I want to say, but it's part of our clinical practice that we involve the parents. You might have other, therapists out there, in private offices that, they might never have the conversation with that parent. And I just, we firmly believe that is not, the best care that we can provide that child, because they don't exist in a vacuum. So, and they are going to be plopped back into that household and make it work. But going back to something that you were saying, like, you're thinking that, I'm going to be an expert by the time this one comes around.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that parents don't factor and need to be gentle with themselves about is personality and temperament are a huge factor in how you parent someone. Just like when we treat our children for whatever ails them, like, we're not going to treat depression the same way with one child than with another child, because we have to take into consideration all the other aspects within them. And I think parents need to be aware of that, and be kind of, again, gentle with themselves to know that this tactic might not work with Jimmy like it worked with Johnny, but let's figure this out. Let's pivot and try something that might make a little bit more sense to this person.
For parents or grandparents that are listening, what percentage, not strict exact percentage, but overall, how many kids really need help, and how has COVID changed that?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. Actually, we do have some statistics. According to U.S. Surgeon General, and this was found in December of 21, so it's relatively new information. So they state that about 1 in 3 high school students and over 50% of students report persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness, and it was an overall increase of 40% since 2009. So those are all kids that could use someone to talk to,
And I know that there are a lot of contributing factors that might make it more difficult for a child to feel confident and know they have all the answers. How do you know when it's time to seek help and it's not something that you can take care of on your own?
Yeah. Well, First off, I think that whenever, if your child is asking for it, that is definitely always the time to seek help. Like, don't, second guess, like, well, do they really need it? If a child asks you, and mom or dad, I really need some counseling, then that would be one indicator. Yes, go ahead.
Does
and
that
do that.
happen often?
yeah.
Because my kids always think that they don't need any help, whether it's reaching something up high or
Yeah.
dealing with some kind of mental issue.
Yeah.
And I think that's a cultural shift that has changed relatively recently.
Okay.
And
So
I've
I'm
heard
not
people.
weird.
No, you're not.
But I am. But
yes.
but not particularly here.
We've had people joke with us, but it is true at this point. Kids talk about their therapists like we would talk about our dentist. Like, oh, I see Dr. Marshall. Who do you see? And they talk about it a lot more openly. A lot of times the barrier to treatment can be the parent, like I talked about, where they still feel that stigma that maybe we felt when we were kids surrounding seeking mental health treatment. So I don't think that it's a child's barrier any longer,
Yeah.
for the most part anyways.
And then the second thing I would consider is like duration of what you're seeing. Because, during the teenage years, you're going to be seeing some strange things, or through those different developmental stages, you're going to be seeing some off things, like who is this child? But if something is persisting, I would say 2 weeks or more, and it's impacting school, family relationships, peer relationships, sleep, how they take care of themselves, eating. If it's impacting those kind of regular areas of their life, I would say that would be a good time to go and just have it be evaluated to see if it warrants some additional counseling and care.
I know with an adult that there are certain times of your life, certain changes in your life that make you ripe for mental need. Is it the same for children? Or they're like if obviously if there's a divorce or a change in the people in your family, but how about, and obviously I think to me as a mother that shift into middle school was a challenge, but how can you tell when there are outward factors that are contributing and what to do about them? Is that something you can, as a family, handle yourself or with a family meeting, or is it something that you need to get help with?
Yeah. So I just want to make sure I understand the question correctly. So if there's some, like a situation that potentially can make an impact on the child.
Yeah. Well, let me back up and say it's my firm belief that we should all be in counseling. Okay, so we'll start with that. Yes,
we could all use
I
it.
agree.
However, because we could all, anyway, so I'll get off my soapbox now. But I am a huge proponent of building resiliency. So I would, start at, is this, can we, work this, problem solve this as a family and build our coping skill muscles? Or are any of the stuff that I had mentioned previously, being impacted of 2 weeks or longer, there's a pattern of a particular emotion happening over that 2 weeks or longer period, and is it impacting the lives? Unless that's happening, I would say, that attempt to manage it as a family and see, whether that could be enough, that could be doable. We become resilient when we are. Let me back up a little bit. So, change doesn't happen when we're comfy. You know what I mean? Growth, a lot of growth doesn't happen when we're comfy. Sometimes huge and amazing things can happen through difficulties and struggles. So you can really end up doing a lot of growth through having to manage something, on your own sometimes. I wonder, does that answer your question?
No, that's absolutely true. So one of the things that I collect knowledge online is through different parenting blogs. Like there's a blog called Grown and Flown for parents whose children first are going away to college and then are out of the house dealing with and so it's user led, where people will bring up different things, and they talk about how when a junior or senior in high school is getting ready to go to college, that they deliberately do things to be obnoxious and push their parents away because they want to, they're feeling that they need to show their ability to deal with things on their own before they go out into the world.
I have not heard that.
Oh, okay. Well, so, and maybe the other parents are just saying that to make those parents whose kids are being especially obnoxious at age 17 feel better.
Yeah. Well, I think that overall, there's a term we use in psychology that individualization is a process that happens throughout all of the teenage years, and really that's more of like, oh mom, do you have to walk with me through the mall, or oh, you know what I mean? So I guess I could see that process really reaching its peak during that stage, but specific to that population, I haven't really come across that, but it sounds like it is a part of that individuation process that is a part of teenagehood.
Well, even the children who insist on holding your hand and not letting go of your hand. I remember being on car trips with my children where I was sitting in the front seat and they were in the back seat, and they both wanted to hold my hand, which was very physically uncomfortable.
So sweet.
But yeah, it was so sweet. And then all of a sudden, not only didn't they want to hold my hand anymore, they never wanted to hold my hand, whether we were crossing the street or walking somewhere or anything. And the change, that the acceptance of that the child is ready for that before the parent is. And I'm sure there are plenty of other instances that you see as well.
Yeah.
So,
well, another example of that too is that in elementary school, your children come to you for answers about the world, right? Mom, what is this, or why this, or why that? And then as they start getting into that middle school, they're like, that they don't want your opinion on anything probably after that, or very much, because they start recognizing, wait, my parents can be wrong, like, and it blows their mind.
I remember my daughter in middle school saying she was asking me, I thought she was asking me for advice. She was actually just telling me about a situation, and she said, I am me and you are you, and I don't do the things that you do. And I'm like,
wait a minute.
Oh,
excuse me.
What?
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect example of that individuation that I'm talking about. That they're trying to find like who they are, not in relation to their parents. So that's a prime example.
So if people find that whether their child, what are the warning signs that their child needs some extra help? Beyond, of course, them asking for it.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, anything that persists, any of the items that I mentioned that persist like 2 weeks or longer. So if you're seeing a particular theme of a emotion, so whether that's sadness, irritability, or anxiety, or things such as that, and again, that being the theme throughout their day, not like they happen to be sad at after school or whatnot, but it's like a theme throughout their day and it lasts 2 weeks or longer. Changes in sleep patterns, changes in eating patterns, shifting things that they would normally do that they don't do anymore, changes in friends sometimes, some personality shifts that might, be not their usual, being impulsive, trying to think some other ones off the top of my head.
There's a great piece that we have on our website. Our website is tykesandteens.org, and there's a Moms for Mental Health section. And what that has on it is the 10 warning signs to look out for in your kiddos as they're going through something like this. So that's a great resource to go back to. We have little trifolds on it, and it's on our website because we promote it often as a resource for parents to be on the lookout for. So listening to what Dr. Marshall just said is a great piece, but as a reference point to go back to that those 10 warning signs.
So you can go back. So
Yes.
if you have maybe one issue and you go to the website and then you look and see if there are other warning signs
Yes.
that you need to take care of. Did things that happen in a child's life, do they change their outlook as an adult forever, or is there ever a point where you can continue to, I mean, obviously as adults we continue and change and learn, but is there damage that if left untreated is going to manifest itself into an adult who can't deal with the world?
It can, much kind of like what I was talking about, parenting, that, temperament and personality has a lot to do with, how a child's going to interact with the world and interact with others. So I know our founder, Jeffrey Shearer, used to do a great presentation on dandelions and orchids, right?
Yes.
That we're either born dandelions or orchids, and orchids, and those dandelions will break through concrete to grow, right? And that's just their nature. And then there are orchids that if the breeze hits them wrong, they might fall apart.
Yeah.
So that is a huge factor in it. So it's tough to say, because it really is dependent upon, a child's resiliency. But there are ways to build a child's resiliency, and through having healthy and safe relationships with adults that can build a child's resiliency, giving children opportunities to exercise and use coping skills, because coping skills are kind of like a muscle where you kind of have to practice them in the least stressful times to have them be ready for you in the most stressful times. So I would consider a child's level of resilience prior to making that choice. I know people that have been through a lot and might have not gone to any counseling and are doing quite okay. So I don't think there's any solid necessarily one way or the other answer for that.
So if you miss the counseling boat,
Yeah.
you're not. We don't have to write you off completely.
No, not necessarily. You're not damaged for life, I promise.
What are some of the ways that families can, on their own, help create resilient children?
So one of my biggest pet peeves that seem to be like a phenomenon around parents these past couple years, I want to say maybe the last 10 years, is we talk about the helicopter parents, and then I heard about the lawnmower parents. Have you heard about the lawnmower?
Yeah,
parents?
they roll over everything. Yeah.
So I'm gonna make this grass nice and neat for you so you can just slide along, right? So that is actually probably more harmful than anything. A child needs to be able to, again, use their problem-solving skills. So, part of it is not, swooping in and rescuing, even though I get that internally is such a, what you call it? Reflex in parents. We want to be mama and papa bears and come in and save the day. But I would invite any parent to hold back a little bit and ask the question, okay, well, how would you like to manage this? And, and how can I support you? So that, is part of it. Increasing a child's vocabulary with being able to have identify their emotions and have it be okay for them to have their emotions. I feel like culturally, well, you shouldn't really be mad about that because it was actually your fault. Or, well, you shouldn't be really sad because look at all the other great things that are happening in your life, right? So we almost don't give people permission sometimes to have their emotions. But I think that is also important, because the more a child is able to sit with their emotions and process their emotions, that is healthy. Being happy all the time is not the best thing for us, or, and actually is probably not doable. So if you say you're happy all the time, you're wrong. But, being able to kind of have those things in place. I just recently, and this was interesting, we do a lot of play therapy at our offices, and what that is, because children won't, a young child is not going to process how their week went, right, verbally. But what they might do is they might grab two dolls and start showing that they're having an argument. So that might indicate a theme of conflict. So perhaps at home there's been a lot of arguing and they're still trying to work it out in their brain. And actually research shows that the more dramatic a child plays, like if they're pretend crying or yelling or all that, the more dramatic it is, that actually the healthier they end up becoming, because they're processing those feelings and emotions and things in such a great level that they're working through their stuff. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
And the fact that you're talking about the littlest kiddos is something that's been interesting to me since working at Tykes, because we talk about our infant mental health program, and my first question was like, how on earth do you do counseling with an infant?
Right,
but
right.
The impact that experiences can have on a 2 to 5 year old, a 1 to 2 year old, can be so much stronger and more impactful on their whole life than any of the other ages, which is why we've started programs at birth or even before, so that a parent can feel comfortable in the situation. So just kind of an observation that those years are really important, and the work that you put in those first 5 years can greatly impact how they turn out moving forward.
And we're talking a lot about the parents or the people that they live with, but keeping in mind too that so much of your child's day is spent with their teacher, probably in some cases more of their day is spent in school or with the teacher, at least their waking day. So I know that the kiddos, the young kiddos program, that's one of the things you do is you go into the child care, early childhood centers and train the teacher.
I'm not an expert in mental health consultation or infant mental health, but I will say that so with mental health consultation, which is at the pre-Ks, what they really do is they try and increase the teacher's capacity to be able to manage the different things that they see throughout the day. It's very trauma informed based, and again, you have teachers that may have not been prepared about your little Johnny is gonna keep biting the students, and how do you manage that? And so what we're trying to do is to help educate those teachers on the most healing way to manage those things, because in fact the largest number of suspensions or expulsions are in pre-K, and that's where we could make so much impact, because if you can imagine what kind of a setup that can potentially be for later on if it's not addressed, right?
Because the child feels that the expectations of him or her are that she or he is disruptive and is going to, if you're suspended from pre-K, that's setting you up.
It can, yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about confidence and the importance of confidence, because that's something else that I've seen made such a difference in a child's life at whatever stage they're at. And I can remember the most popular kids in school aren't always the richest or the smartest or the best looking. They're the most confident kids. So how do you instill confidence in a child?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and there's actually a movement that has taken us away from really talking about confidence or self-esteem, and shined a light stronger on self-compassion, because that is really growing your ability to show your self-compassion actually impacts those areas as well. That it's a lot you get more bang for your buck by trying to hone in on your self-compassion versus your confidence. And the reason being is because with confidence, there's so much leeway to our confidence, even up to as an adult. It's almost like you're standing on a pedestal and you get these little arrows sent your way throughout the day, and you got to dodge them. And sometimes you're going to get hit by an arrow that is going to knock you off that confidence block. And I know as an adult that's happened to me. I've had certain things that have challenged that, and I'm sure your ladies can relate to that. So so I think that in self-compassion, there are three elements to that. And one is having a sense of connection to other human beings, meaning that what I'm going through and what I just experienced, everyone is going through experience. So that, if you take the example of a mistake, I made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. Human beings are infallible. And, being able to have that kind of a mindset. The other piece is being mindful of how you are feeling in that moment, that something that is challenging your confidence, what you're thinking in your brain in that moment, and just having that awareness and just looking at the thoughts like they were clouds going by versus really attaching to them. So like an example of that is, like I'm thinking I'm a failure versus in a mindful way, like, oh, wow, that thought came in my brain of I'm a failure. So you're recognizing that thought is there, but you're not connecting it. You're not saying that it's real or true or whatnot. And then, just being aware of the sensations in your body. So being present in that moment fully. And the final aspect to self-compassion is giving yourself gentleness. Like, it's okay. Like, what would you tell your best friend if that happened to them? It's okay. You're going to get past this. You're going to learn from this. So those are three things that if we can encourage children to do in those moments that challenge us, could very much foster that growth in self-confidence. And of course, another huge aspect in confidence is self-efficacy, feeling like you are effective in the things that you do. So giving a child opportunities to, develop things or, hone a talent and things like that. Or giving them responsibilities that are set up for success, and that are just a little bit outside of easy, right? Mm-hmm. But not too hard to where it's that they could fail. Giving those kind of opportunities to children at various ages can also be a benefit. And of course, the other aspects that I'd mentioned with allowing them to have their feelings and that their feelings are valid. I would say that would probably be off the top of my head, my items for that recipe.
So the children who have to deal with challenges or competition, for example, if they have to try out for a sports team or try out for a school play, or are promoted into a higher level classroom, or have to deal with tests that are standard achievement tests, whenever they have to kind of prove themselves, and they fall short, is there a way to be able to encourage them to bounce back?
Yeah. So one of the things that we encourage parents to do is to encourage a growth mindset. So what that means is honoring the process versus what the product is. So if we're constantly telling a child...
Ooh, I like that.
Right?
Say that again. Honor the process
not the
instead
product.
of the product.
Yeah.
Which is very helpful for adults, too.
Right.
Yeah.
So because what happens is that child that is always... wow, you got an A, that's so wonderful. Wow, you got an A, that's so wonderful. Versus, wow, you really, put your heart into studying that. The moment that they don't get that A, or, whatever that product, when they don't produce that product, then that is going to really make a huge impact on how they feel connected to the identity of, oh, I'm a smart kid or whatnot. But the more you are able to, again, like I said, the process of wow, or going back to like the, if they're trying out for drama, like wow, I love the way you read that line and you worked so hard and you had so many hours dedicated to that. So we really want to. Because what happens is that that builds that self-efficacy piece. Like, I can do this, I can get through it. And there are actually studies that do prove this where, if I can remember correctly, they had students that were given a very easy math quiz, and there were 50% of the class were the usual students that were always, highlighted for their good grades. And the other students were students that might have not gotten always the good grades or weren't maybe known to be the quote unquote smart kid. So, and the majority of the class got, good grades because it was a very easy test. So then they handed them the little bit of a harder test. And obviously the children that got A's got lower grades, and the other children got, similar lower grades as well. When they provided them a test that was in, let's say, a mid-range of ability, the kids that normally were, again, quote unquote, the smarter kids, actually couldn't do well on the test because that previous test had shattered a little bit of their confidence versus the other kids that were used to being promoted by their process, by their again, I don't know what other word to call it, but process, right? They actually did better than those students on that medium level test. I'm probably not misquoting a little bit, but that was really the premise, that those children got thrown off the pedestal very easily with that, a huge challenge and not being able to meet that.
There's so many different stages and ages and situations where somebody else gets to make the decision that it may be totally subjective and not reflective of like making a soccer team or being the one selected for the lead or with colleges, with college applications, that period must be so fraught with emotion for the kids because no matter what they did all through school, student A and student B might have identical grades and identical everything, and one gets accepted to a certain college and one does not because there's actually a subjective person or committee that made that decision. And then as we continue with adults, applying for jobs, that's something else where a subjective person is judging you, and that's difficult for adults to deal with, but I can't imagine how difficult that is for children as well.
Well, it's interesting because that brings to mind, we do presentation in the community at times called The Science of Happiness, and it's based on actually a course that they provide in Yale to their student body. And one of the things that we do during that presentation is debuff myths of what's going to make you happy. So sometimes I get that pushback from the parents of, well, what do you mean I can't, say good job for an A? Because that's, because we're so trained in our society that, in order to find happiness, you're going to work really hard, then you got to get that good product or that great job or that great A, and then you'll be happy. But we have it so backwards because because actually science says that the most successful people are the happiest people on the planet. So they started out being happy and they ended up getting to success. Success didn't make a person, happy. So if we could really just focus on the well-being of a child and not, again, the final product, then those items, those, moments of, like whether I get the job or not get the job, go to college or not go to college, that stuff isn't going to, derail me as much as, trying to get to that product.
We've spent a lot of this hour, and I'm sorry, Courtney, talking to Dr. Marshall about, how people can families can deal with issues alone and on their own. But so say you've determined that you need help. So how can Tykes and Teens help you? In what ways?
So to reach us, I'll start there. If you're looking for help with your kiddo, calling us at 772-220-3439 or going to tykesandteens.org or emailing gethelp@tykesandteens.org gets you connected to us directly, and we can kind of try to help you figure out which program you might be going into or if we're not the right answer, we have a great list of resources that we can refer them to for them to find the right fit. So if you've determined that you need help and it's mental health related, call us and we'll help from there. The different ways that we can help specifically in St. Lucie County, the programs that we have offered here, we do have that awesome office out off of St. Lucie West Boulevard. And so we do general mental health out there. It's our outpatient office. So we don't have any inpatient treatment in any of the 4 counties that we serve. We also have our infant mental health here, our mental health consultation. I'd love for Anushka to do a quick 20-second what our trauma-informed care opportunity is in the community.
And also, we still have a few minutes. Let's define trauma-informed care, because not everybody may understand what that means.
Sure. So trauma-informed care means recognizing that, I think that there's a quote out there by Robin Williams that says, be kind to everyone because we don't know what kind of battles we are facing. So it's approaching individuals with an understanding that we are all facing our own issues and things, and then approaching that individual in a way that can promote the healing in that versus something that might perpetuate a conflict. So one of the things that, and again, this is very useful for teachers or anyone really in the health and human services field who is working with other individuals. One of the metaphors that we use is, if you're on a vacation, your eyes are closed and you're by a pool and you get a splash, your first response might be annoyance. Your first response might be a little bit anger, like, why is this person ruining my time, right? And if you open your eyes and that you got splashed because the person is drowning, well, now your response is different, right? Mm-hmm. And it's being able to approach people in a more healthy and healing way so that we're not re-triggering a trauma response within the individual or child. And it's a series of trainings that we do. It's 6 in total, where the various topics touch upon different aspects of the trauma-informed care process.
Go ahead, Courtney.
I was just going to say, how does a business or an organization get to us in order to take that training?
Yeah. So Mrs. Dorothy Oppenheiser is our Director of Prevention Program, and she oversees the trauma-informed care programs. And really, it's we have a specialist that comes in and does the trainings, and we do them for free in the Treasure Coast.
Tykes and Teens does receive some funding that is state and federal funded, but you also have, that's why there's a director of development. You do get funding from other sources. If this is something that's near and dear to your heart and you want to be a part of making the world a better place for everybody, how can people get involved?
So we have a variety of different ways that you can support the organization. Obviously, monetary donations is something that makes our life a lot easier and makes us able to do the programs that we do. We specifically have May's Mental Health Awareness Month. So a campaign that we're running right now is Paint the Town Green. Green is the mental health awareness color. Mm-hmm. So the whole Treasure Coast, we're trying to get some green elements. So a $500 commitment gets you to be a mental health champion for the month of May and assists our programs and also gets you a little highlight as one of those champions. But we have other ways that you can help on our website. There's the Donate Now button, but there's a great Give Help tab where we have like an Amazon wish list for the play therapy tools that our therapists use in their offices. It has the sand trays that we use for that play therapy that costs about $150 per office and has a very specific like blue color that we need for each of them, where some of them are just using Tupperware containers out of their homes right now, because it's kind of like when you start as a teacher at school, you walk into an empty classroom, you're walking into an empty office for the most part. So that Amazon wish list is a great thing to go reference if you just want to help a therapist get the tools that they need to do their job.
So there's all different levels of ways that people can contribute.
Absolutely.
And if you want to get involved as a volunteer, there are volunteer opportunities too.
For the most part, our volunteer opportunities are project-based or around events, because all of our therapists are master's degree or higher and licensed. Mm-hmm. So some people come to us and say, well, I was a therapist in my past life. I'd love to volunteer for you. It doesn't meet our criteria, but we have great project-based. We're working on a painting opportunity in our Palm City office. There's like admin work that comes up, and then there's, of course, our special events that help are primarily run by our volunteers.
We have a few minutes left. Let's talk a little bit about the special events that you have coming up.
Sure.
Not too far in the future.
Yes. So we have 2 great campaigns that we're running. Like I said, we're doing the Mental Health Awareness Month where we're painting the town green. There's an awesome series that's a virtual series of presentations that we're doing as information sessions for parents. It's called...
Are you blanking? Because I'm blanking.
I sure am. But it's an amazing campaign where we give tools to parents, and it's starting next Wednesday at 4:30. That's February 23rd at 4:30, and it's airing on our Facebook page, and then we'll go on to our website. So that's a great event that we're doing.
And let me just interrupt for just a minute just to say that liking your Facebook group
Yes.
will get you all of this information.
Yes, absolutely. Mental Health Matters series.
Oh, okay.
That's what it's called.
The minute you
Moments.
stop thinking
I
of
know.
it, you do. Yeah.
And then that's on our Facebook page. So that's a series of events that's coming up. But as far as our fundraising special events, we have one that's taking place in Vero Beach on March 30th. It's called Brunch for Babies, where it's, as it sounds, a brunch where you get mimosas in your brunch and a little Tiny Tots fashion show that we're doing at Grand Harbor in Vero Beach. And then, as always, I plug the Festival of Trees and Lights in November because it's our primary fundraiser that brings in about $250,000 for our programming.
Wow.
Yes, so we start recruiting for help with that in
Yes.
April, and that's a great way to get involved.
And that April is right around the corner here.
Yes.
So if you have, if you are interested in helping with this special event, that would be a great one to help with. I'm
Yes,
sure there's
absolutely.
a lot of different opportunities for people to get involved with. And also, if you're listening and you're a business owner and you want to be involved as a sponsor, Courtney's talked about some of the different opportunities for sponsoring as well. All of this stuff you can find on their Facebook group, and you have other social media too. You
Yep.
have Instagram.
We have Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and then our website are primarily where you can go. We have a great newsletter that goes out every other month, and we have a YouTube page where we post all of our videos. And everything is Tykes Teens, at Tykes Teens, except
Okay.
for our website, which is tykesandteens.org.
Okay. So if you put into your search engine Tykes Teens or Tykes and Teens, the stuff's going to pop up.
They'll find us.
Yeah. So yeah. This has been great. I've learned a lot, and I would love to have the two of you come back again as your, special events, maybe before your May Mental Health
Sure.
Awareness Month and Painting the Town Green. Courtney 9/10, who is the development director of development, has been with us today, along with Dr. Marshall, who is the chief clinical officer for Tykes and Teens. Thank you both for joining me today,
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
and we'll see you back here next week with more. Have a great day.
The Sue-EllenSanders Show has archives on YouTube. Go to WPSLTV.com, see our YouTube presence, binge watch some Sue-Ellen Sanders Show on WPSLTV.com.